Hello everyone, welcome to another video. In this video is particularly made for students who are actually appearing for HKICPA Capstone exam, which is the last exam, as you know, and I wish you best of luck to pass that exam. You know that QP has changed their structure of exam of their last exam, and you are going. It's actually a case study exam where you will be receiving a pre-seen material, which basically is your case study before the examination, and you have 5 days. I would say 7 days or 5 days or a week to prepare and to understand that case study. It's very crucial that you understand the case study before going to the exam, because it will help you to answer questions. And it's not an exam about technicalities, accounting technicalities. It's more about case analysis and how you approach a case analysis, how you approach case studies, how you answer questions from case studies. So I have kind of summarized 19 basic questions that you can actually answer before going to the exam and summarize the case study. You are probably not required to carry all the learning packs that you are thinking of carrying. You just need to summarize the case study very well, make notes on case study, research on case study, and if you have done that well, it's very likely that you can be successful in the exam. So we will go through these 19 questions step by step or one by one to understand what I actually mean in those 19 questions. So the first thing is you have access to the case study, and the question that you should ask to yourself first is what the business is about and what industry the company belongs to. So for example, the business could be a coffee seller. It could be, a coffee seller business, and it belongs to F&B industry. It belongs to F&B industry, right? So you can actually do your research on what are different coffee sellers, all right? So what are different coffee sellers in the market, how F&B business, or I would say F&B industry is performing. So things like that, right? So you get an idea here what you should be looking at. It's like what the business is actually doing, what business is about, and which industry it belongs to. So you can actually do relevant research then and understanding what the business is about. The second question that you can actually, which can be considered important, is understanding the corporation, the type of organization. It's very important, right? So there are different forms. There are different types of organizations, right? As I said, it's written there, like for example, corporation and partnerships or public limited companies, right? So you need to understand what the business is. Is the business a partnership or a corporation? Because each has its own advantages and disadvantages. So you need to understand. So you need to understand and summarize those things, because they will help you. They will help you understand or answer questions and make linkages based on what the question is asking. So it's very important. The case study exam is actually application based. So you need to understand what type of organization it is. It helps understand and answer questions. So third thing that you can actually look, or you should actually be looking, is basically the year of corporation, when the business was formed, when the business was formed, and it's usually it will be given. Another thing that you should do is create a timeline of milestones, or uh, achievements of company, achievements of the company, right? So you should actually be uh, you should actually be summarizing and creating such timelines, because it will help you understand the whole idea of business, and you can link. So the successes of businesses are important, and also the failures, so that it can help you understand why the business failed, and the company probably cannot do that, cannot repeat those mistakes again. So you can try to understand that in the case study. And that's why it will require you to read the case study several times. Like one reading will not be enough. So you can have one read to understand what the business is about, and you can do a second reading, which is much more detailed. Pay attention to words and key terms over there that are used in the case study to understand everything. Now, then you can understand the core competitive advantage of the company. So it is important. Every business has to create a competitive advantage to survive in the market. Otherwise, the business will eventually close, right? So there are different and there are different types. There are different types of competitive advantages. Right? So mainly it is either producing the product at lower cost, or differentiation, right? So these are like two common types of competitive advantage. Either the company goes for cost leadership, which is producing the good or service at a lower cost, or doing a differentiation, which is basically not doing what market or other competitors are doing in the market. So you should understand, you should summarize this. What is the core competitive advantage? What makes company unique? What makes your case study, the company mentioned in the case study, unique? So you need to understand what competitive advantage is company focusing on, and you might have a question on like what company should do based on their core competitive advantage, whether they should change it or they should keep it, things like that. So these questions will actually be important to understand and answer such questions. So if you look at question 5 here, identify factors for core competitive advantage, right? So what is making them successful? Like so for example, if the company is a cost is a cost leader, so basically producing their goods and services at lower cost. But what is making them produce the goods and services at lower cost, right? So you need to understand what is making the company produce the product or provide a service at lower cost, right? So for example, it could be EOS, which is economies of scale, right? So maybe the company has advantage of economies of scale, and therefore they're able to produce their goods and services at lower cost. So that would be like part of understanding the case study. Then other thing is like you should identify what are the company's product offerings, right? How many products are offered? So these would be like quantitative details. You should understand the features of those products, basic characteristics, right? Basic characteristics of the product. So these things will help you understand like what the company's product is, what is making them successful, what they're offering, and you can actually come up with questions as well. Like you can think of what kind of questions can be asked from the case study before the exam. So that will help you, and you can think about those questions, and they will definitely help you do better on the exam. Then does the company have international presence? Uh, this is this is another important question, right? So if the business is global, then there are other considerations. There are other considerations to be made, like international tax law, or international commercial law. So there are several things that you would have to understand if the business is if the business is operating globally. They would have different risks compared to local businesses. So these would be important things over there. Then is company considering international expansion in the case or not, right? So this is a yes no question basically. As I say, if the company is considering international expansion, then again it will drop down to you will have to go back to question 7 and understand what kind of risks the company is going to face and how company will address those risks, right? So that could be actually a question in your exam. If the company is targeting international expansion, then there can be a question on asking that, right? What kind of international expansion, which country, what are the laws that will be applicable, and how company will whether the company should go for such an expansion or not, things like that. Then if given, understand the organizational structure and identify, right? So understanding organizational structure is also important because this tells you a lot about company, whether there's a freedom or not, whether the management is very strict or not, whether the company is creative or promotes creativeness or innovativeness or not, things like that. So these things would be important. Marketing channels are also important. There could be different marketing channels these days. Companies are doing influencer media, social influencer, things like that, advertising through Facebook, Instagram. So a lot of companies are doing that these days. So it is important to understand what kind of channels are being used, because they also affect these marketing channels, these marketing channels will affect business sales potential. So that's why it is important to understand the different marketing channels, and you should actually summarize those different marketing channels, and understand if the business is, let's say, if in the case study, the case says that company wants to launch a new product, then the question could equally ask you to advise on a marketing strategy, or different marketing channels for the new products or the service line. Then you should perform SWOT analysis, and any other analysis like for example value chain or Potter's 5 forces. There are several analyses that you can actually do. So you should be doing that as well. Then if possible, identify potential risks being faced by the business, right? So there could be several risks that the business might be facing. For example, financial risk, right? That's one type of risk. For example, financial risk. It could be exchange rate risk if the company is global operations, or any other creditworthiness risks from their accounts receivable, so things like that. All right, so you should identify the types of risks that the case study has mentioned. They won't be written very apparently, so you would actually have to. That's why I said you would actually have to read the case study several times to understand those different types of risks that are involved in the case study. Then you should actually, I would prefer, you should write down mitigating steps to reduce those risks identified in 12, right? So you should actually do that, because that's also crucial. That will actually also help you save time in the exam. If such a question appears up, you have already done your research work, so it will actually so you can actually better spend time on organizing your answer well, rather than spending time on thinking, because you have done the thinking beforehand. You already had 5 days to read the case study, to do the analysis, to summarize the case study. So you can do that. You can do that actually beforehand. Then usually, if you're given financial statements, then you should perform financial analysis, right? So you should actually calculate the different ratios, such as GP margin, NP margin, and etc. Right? So you should actually do your financial analysis, and then understand what is happening with those numbers, because so this question is this one is about understanding the ratios calculated above. So that's also important, because calculating numbers by itself doesn't tell you anything. So you have to perform an analysis. You have to understand what is happening and why is happening. So you have to write down those reasons on why those numbers do make sense actually, or they may not make sense. Then again, you have to explain why they do not make sense. You should also understand if, like, what accounting standards will be applicable to the company if that is the case, right? So if it's a Hong Kong company, then it's more likely that it's Hong Kong financial reporting standards, HKFRS, or otherwise it could be IFRS or GAAP. It really depends. So that's why it's important to understand what the company is doing, where it is based, the location of the company. So these things will help you understand what accounting issues can actually come up as well. Right, so this can actually help you understand different accounting issues. Then this part is also important. You should identify any unethical stuff going in the business or the case study, right? So if it's mentioned, then you should actually be able to spot that and write it down somewhere. And also, also you should be able to understand like how to address that ethical issue, and understand and come up with a plan or solution to solve the ethical issue, right? So using the ethical framework that is provided by the QP, right? So you should actually do that as well. Then you can identify other corporate related things and understand the leadership of the company and any other thing which you think is crucial and important to the understanding of that case study, because each case study is different, each company is different, each business is different. But these are the common 19 questions that can actually help you summarize the case study, what is happening in the case study. You can actually ask these questions to yourself, and nicely write it down somewhere, and you can actually take those notes to the exam, because it's an open book exam. That is the good part of it. And then you can actually, when writing those answers, once you have seen the question, this analysis will surely help you in answering your case analysis questions. I hope this video was helpful to you, and if you find this video helpful, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. Thank you very much.